We are good to go. All right. I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for December 11th, 2025. I'd like to start this meeting off in a good way by acknowledging that we are gathered on the Treaty 8 First Nations territory in the long-standing presence of the elders and the ancestors of Treaty 8. And then through this acknowledgement, we extend recognition and respect to the BC Treaty 8 First Nations and all those who call this country home. I'd like to move that the committee adopt the December 11th, 2025 Committee of the Whole meeting agenda, seconded by Councillor Wall. Any discussion regarding tonight's agenda?
Worship, during the agenda review, between yourself and myself,
right.
There was one item that I think was flagged as being good for referral to the special meeting that's scheduled for this evening, and that was item 8.11.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, item 11.1.
Oh, 11.1. Okay, thank you.
OCP revision bylaw.
Yes. With that, just because we're looking at doing first, second, and third reading, we can't generally do that during a Committee of the Whole meeting. So I'd like to make the recommendation that item 11.1 be moved to the special meeting taking place this evening. Is that being seconded by you, Councillor Wall? Thank you. Any discussion regarding moving that item over? I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? Okay, and then I'm also going to call the question on adopting this evening's agenda with that change. All those in favor? And that is unanimous and carried. Wonderful. Okay, moving on to introduction of late items, none. Public hearings, none. Delegations, none. Unfinished business and business arising from the minutes, none. Moving on to new business, item number 8.1.
I recommend that the committee, what's the council?
Actually, yeah, okay, I'd like to make the recommendation that the committee receive the 2026 draft operating and capital budget overview report for information and approve the 5% scenario in principle as the basis for the continued 2026 budget development. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Johnston, thank you. Discussion? Councillor Wall?
Why is there no 0% increase scenario?
There's one that exists that is the basis for, I guess, moving forward. This is not included.
It's not in the report. Is that 0% scenario just like? Would that be really difficult for us to achieve?
With respect to balancing the budget, or they're all difficult to achieve, really. Really, it comes down to the village's appetite, in my opinion, on the allocation of the PRA funding at the end of the day between operations and capital. So, in any scenario that you see outlined in the 5, 7, or 10 there, the allocation is a 60-40 split, 60 operating, 40% capital. Historically, the village has run in close to like an 80% operating, 20% capital.
I'm trying to get away from that.
Yes. The reality of it, Councillor Wall, is that it's likely going to be in kind of that 70 to 80% range once we get kind of some final numbers around other grants and some final spending pieces there. So I guess to your question, is like a 0% an achievable piece? There would likely need to be a reserve transfer. There's likely going to need to be a reserve transfer for a 5% piece to balance like we had this year, right? So we could come back with the 0% scenario for sure. Yeah.
And so looking at the budget under the 5%, excuse me, we're looking at a transfer from reserves of $268,087. I would just like to remind council that some of that money coming from reserves is coming from our Growing Communities Fund as well as our gas tax fund. Those things, we've strategically planned the budget, understanding that that money does need to come out of gas tax and growing communities because the province does expect us to begin using those funds.
To that point,
yes.
Sorry, the 268,000 would be a straight reserve transfer, would not come from grant.
So that's not coming from those gas tax or growing community?
No, there's a scenario where water negotiation piece or even the infrastructure master plan component that I know is a priority. We have in an operating capacity could come from a growing communities fund transfer. Duncan's been in communication with some of the grant funders just to kind of flush some of that out, but at this time we haven't had a final answer there. So there's a possibility, yes, that a portion of it could. With that in mind though, I don't know if we can necessarily hang our hat on that and say that that's the case. So
Okay. I was really hopeful.
I am as well, right? Like we have, there's requirements in terms of that cash being spent within the next kind of 3 to 4 years type of thing. We can't hang on to them forever. However, we do need to be kind of mindful of how we manage some of those grant pieces moving forward as well. You can't anticipate everything that's going to happen when it comes to the capital world, but some of these pots that we're drawing from to fund some of these initiatives in the short term are not going to exist kind of 3 to 4 years down the road once we draw down these funds, right? So needing to be mindful of, in my opinion anyways, again, back to what's that long-term asset management planning piece and how are we kind of budgeting and putting aside funds for that to have that rainy day, keep building, that rainy day fund that we can draw on in the event that, we have a water main break and we can't get a grant fund for it or something like that, right? Duncan and I have talked quite a bit too, just about like the village is in a very good scenario where there isn't any debt either, right? And I know that's a huge piece. We're not servicing debt, we're not paying down debt. We have some cash in reserves for sure, but we, from a 5-year financial plan, I think we need to be super diligent and mindful just of kind of how do we map this out so that it makes sense. It's reasonable, it's tolerable, but it kind of addresses some future pieces there too, while managing existing grants, like you said, right? So that infrastructure master plan is kind of key to this whole piece moving forward.
Yes, it's one of the biggest things that we need,
we absolutely need it. If it can be paid for through a growing communities fund, I think that's fantastic use of those funds because they have to be used by 2028. 27?
Yeah.
So,
that's about 800,000.
It's about 800 grand. So absolutely, that's a great spend on that. I think huge bang for buck, right? If they come back and say no, that's not a possibility.
It's still a huge need, but now we're servicing out of our general reserve.
Yeah.
So we're budgeting for that out of our general reserve in here, which shows that deficit. Where if we got that through the Growing Communities Fund, it wouldn't.
Well, we would still be facing a deficit because the cost of the infrastructure master plan was 50,000, am I correct?
130.
130, thank you.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be as bad.
Let me ask that. There is a scenario there where a shift in the PRA funding from say like a 60 to a 70, 80% operating side of things with the community or growing communities fund piece funding that infrastructure master plan, where we could get to a place where we landed this year where we had a reserve transfer of like 70 grand or 60 grand to balance, which through procurement and various things that played out this year, we may not even have to do.
So there is the possibility of having a balanced budget with no deficit, with no tax increase.
I guess anything's possible. However, I think it's highly unlikely. I would strongly suggest that there needs to be a tax increase just from that continued base from a taxation perspective, because if we're not even indexed to inflation, then we're just falling in.
We're falling behind, which is the same pattern we were in for a long time. Councillor Woodall?
So can I just add one other thing to that?
Absolutely.
Just like to your point, like the tax increase piece, we also have to be mindful that in any scenario, I don't foresee, unless there's like a large influx of people or a large influx of industry or commercial pieces that come into the village, where tax revenue is going to bring us to a place that kind of fully funds village operations at the end of the day. And that's where things like that Peace River Agreement money and those types of things help to offset those types of things. The more we become dependent on those pieces, longer term, further and further we fall behind.
Just on the tax rates, your worship, my understanding is that the revenue that you have in these three scenarios, Josh, is the 5, 7, 10, encapsulate, like that's a static or a firm number in those, right? That would be inclusive of assessment increases.
Correct.
Also with a mill rate increase. So
Correct.
whether it's a percent increase to the mills or the assessed value across the community, you know, the village isn't conflating those two numbers, right? The percent might be, you know, 1% or, you know, 2%, you know, across residential, while the assessed value of, you know, homes in the village is only has increased, you know, X amount. So it's an more honest way, you know, to do it, because it's
dollars, basically.
It's dollars. It's dollars.
Yeah. It's like the proposed mill rate increase, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Duncan, I believe, in like from a BC assessment perspective, is in that 3.5% to 4% range. So that hasn't been finalized yet. We'll get that final number from BC assessment in the new year. That's kind of like a budget increase piece would come through BC assessment side of things, right? So a 0% increase, we would have to factor in that like a mill rate increase essentially there as well, right?
There you go, Councillor Woodall, and then Councillor Bell.
Right, so what I got questions on is under the capital and general municipal part of the budget.
Yep.
So I know we're looking at an infrastructure master plan, and I see we got 250,000 budgeted for culvert and paving replacement.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, is it something to maybe hold off on any paving until that infrastructure master plan is done, because that's going to require ripping up roads to get to some of that infrastructure, right? Okay. So why are we paving roads and we've got to rip up roads? Because the reality is, you know, anywhere we can save a buck, and if we're going to pave a road and then have to pay to rip it up and pave it again, 5 years down the road, let's save ourselves a couple bucks there. The other one that I had some questions on, and I know we're going to see these numbers again, so I'll give you guys something to kind of look at, is the post office ramp for 20 grand. Is that one of those things that we can stretch out? Because that ramp was put in it's only put in maybe 5, 6 years ago, something like that. It's not that old.
It's part of our accessibility committee need, been identified by the Northeastern BC Accessibility Committee.
No, okay. And then the other one was the cemetery walking path. Like, in all honesty, $10,000 to that, or putting $10,000 back into our infrastructure. I think the infrastructure for water and sewer is a higher priority than a walking path. And my apologies, I went through this the other day and it was bouncing around in my head and I didn't mention to you guys earlier.
So the first pass, you know, we're not getting our backs up or anything like that.
Those are a couple of things, because I know some of the stuff on here, like the fire hall expansion, engineering and feasibility, there's money from the regional district to cover that. Potential new fire truck, right, there's grants that we're applying for that.
Although
public works equipment, right?
Yes, there is grants that we're applying for that, but if the village was successful in procuring a new fire truck, the village would be responsible for 10% of that total cost. That's where that 190 grand comes from.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things too, that if we can pony up all the money on a fire truck up front, if we pull it out of reserves or whatever, we can pony it up front, we get a better delivery time and we lock in a better price too.
Like 190,000 for a brand new fire truck is very good deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to speak to some of the items you brought up, Councillor Woodall. So the culvert and paving, that work is part of our flood mitigation plans that we've been working through. So that's where we're identifying those culverts that do not meet provincial regulated standards.
Yeah, because we had a study that was done a while back.
And so that culvert and paving is regarding
culvert replacement. I'm all right with, but I have a real hard time greenlighting paving right now when we're looking at digging.
Don't forget, this is patch paving, so it's not full paving, it's just patch paving wherever they're pulling up the culvert.
I agree with Councillor Little on this.
I know, remember, if you dig up, so we experienced this summer, if you dig up a culvert and you leave it gravel, people get really angry.
Well, if you leave a 2.5-inch drop in it, if you can go fill it full of gravel, yeah, you get a lot of complaining. But
you can explain to the public, is it worth $250,000?
They would be like, of course, I got a rock through my window, which
so
is exactly what we heard this
like,
summer.
The biggest reason I'm bringing it up is just more for staff cognizant going into this next year that, you know, my opinion is anyway, and you know, Councillor Wolf shares my opinion by the sounds of it, that money's better off being redirected into, you know, some major infrastructure, long-term infrastructure to help with that asset management.
Yeah.
Other than that, Like, and just that little stuff, I know it's one of those things, like, over the next couple of years, we're definitely gonna be looking at where we can redirect some money back into it, cause at the end of the day, that I honestly truly believe that our infrastructure is what needs to be fixed. Like, there's stuff that's probably been in the ground here since the 30s, and we don't quite know where all of it is even, right? So, and it's been a process. I know this last year we were able to put some money back towards finding curb stops with the leftover paving money and that kind of stuff, so like that was great. So that's my only real comment on that. And then stuff like the walking path, again, I'd like to see that money go back into the community, because really at the end of the day, the residents of the cemetery don't really complain about a walking path.
Well, there was a reason why the walking path was put on there.
It's a grant, isn't it?
The current one that's there is
Heaving, yes,
Like,
and it's
the pathway from the, ring road, for lack of better words, in the cemetery to the columbarium. There's been, the thing that I've heard on my end is, accessibility challenges,
Yes.
et cetera. But it's a, what do you call it? It's a unconventional path in relation to the rest of the, walkways or walking space that's out there. There is a possibility to just remove entirely in that gravel.
Did we look at, we bought that pallet of all that paving stuff and that wouldn't work?
Apparently not. No. I did ask that question, and apparently it's not in relation to getting climate to do next summer.
Okay. Councillor Ravel.
Okay, so essentially we're facing some pressures. We're facing cost increases for material goods. It's just increasing there. We've got increased demand. People have an expectation of certain services, because that's ultimately what we're really doing here with this budget, is determining what services we're providing and to what standard, right? In a lot of ways we already are bare bones in a lot of senses. So, there's only so much you can cut, because there's already an existing cost to just that service existing. We're trying to catch up with the infrastructure. We're trying to meet existing and new regulations. And also we're dealing with a lot of provincial downloading of provincial responsibilities. So we're facing a lot of pressures right now. It's a really interesting time for a municipality. We're actually facing a lot of pressures. And so, although I would like to see us, fully balanced budget, nothing transferred from reserves, even putting money into reserves to save for the rainy day, I do appreciate the fiscal position where we are not debt financing the operations here. That's huge. That is huge. We're in a position where our federal government and our provincial government are debt financing their operations, right? Thank goodness we're not in that. Thank goodness we have our reserves. Obviously, you can't eat from your reserves forever, right? We've got to be cognizant of that. We have a duty to the next generations, because if you blow it all today, we've seen other governments do this. They get excited about the reserves, they blow it all, and then they've got nothing to fall back on. Right now is a time where there's a lot of these other pressures that are forcing us to spend money to meet all the demands of the day. So I understand that it's a difficult time. I am curious though about, I would say, two different things. One's the municipal property tax, just for clarification on that, because my understanding of how these budgets were presented in the previous years was a straight mill rate, like the municipality charges 5% more than they did last year, that's it, right? You're saying it's, my understanding, to just clarify, is that it is a mixture proportionally of however it ends out at the end of the day of BC assessment rates increasing, which likely are to increase versus decrease, and whatever that proportion is will be made up by a municipal bylaw implemented mill rate increase. Is that correct to say then that's the 5%? We collected, let's say we collected 760,000 or 70,000 last year. Now we have to collect 780. We figure that out. Am I correct in that? It's a mixture versus us saying directly it's 5% on top.
It's an interesting question. I would need to answer your question appropriately. I would need to go back to what the mill rate increase was last year. I don't know that off the top of my head. 7% was what we did.
Was
from
our
an
tax,
increase perspective.
yeah.
I don't know what the mill rate increase.
Because mill rate is the end user pay, right? Mm-hmm. Like what they actually owe to the municipality.
It sets their property value, which would then drive what they pay from a property tax perspective.
X number of pennies per thousand. The mill is the per thousand.
Which results in the end user pays this much kind of thing. Okay, yeah.
The only reason why I say I'd be curious about what it was, because I kind of feel it was around a net zero, because we did, in the mill rate side of things last year, because when we were preparing the budget just from a pure financial piece last year, it was kind of like right into our kind of infancy in terms of this arrangement with the village. And so I just did a straight, here's a 5% increase on what was collected last year, here's a 7, here's a 10, and it's almost worked out to the dollar. So in terms of tax revenue. So my guess there is that the mill rate increase was virtually a wash between industrial and municipal, residential properties.
Not to say that the village wasn't collecting more money.
Correct. Yeah.
But it was because that extra money was yielded through the increase in assessments in the village rather than an increase to the mill rate, because it was the revenue first that was driving the financial planning, rather than we want X number in percent in tax increases and whatever we get from assessments, thanks very much, residents, we're gonna take that in. So I don't think the approach that we've developed here.
No, in terms of kind of for this year, that's the approach we've taken in terms of that combination of a mill rate / tax increase side of things, right? So if we're saying a 5%, and Duncan, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel we're on the same page with this, is that has been inclusive of each thing. So like say a 4% mill increase, 1% tax increase gets the 5% increase. This is kind of the approach we've taken here. So
If I may respond to that, I think that's a fairer way to approach it, instead of saying here arbitrarily we want 5% across the board, where it's kind of a two-factor situation. We can legislate bylaw wise, we want this much versus, or this is the percentage that you're going to pay versus BC assessment. Say everyone put in new fences and gutters and driveways and garages and it all bumped up all the prices, or everyone ripped off their siding and let their houses rot and decreased it, right? So anyways, it's more proportional. I do have a question though for the PRA agreement. Is that based off of last year's numbers or this year's contracted numbers, or where's that coming from? Because obviously that's a big piece of the revenue. What informed that number?
the PRA, the agreement. So we did like a preliminary number in October that would say based on this is your anticipated number for 2026. So it's $1,060,000 somewhere in there, total. Could fluctuate a little bit. It fluctuated a little bit last year, not a crazy amount, but we'll get a final number in the new year. So
because it's all dependent on that eventually collected revenue.
yeah, they forecasted it out, and it's been like, for all intents and purposes, it's been pretty accurate, really. So yeah, $1,060,350, give or take a few pennies. Like that's roughly what Poos gets for.
And those actuals and everybody around there.
Okay.
Councillor Wong?
This is my last comment here. I just think we need to note that we're in a cost of living crisis. The cost of food's gone up, cost of everything's gone up. And I mean, how many people use our food bank every week? We're a very small community, and how many people do use the food bank?
On average, about 54.
54. We have under 1,000 people. We have about 800 people, and 50 use
We
food
serve
bank.
the whole region.
But there's still food banks in other communities in the region as well. And I think it is important to note that right now, I don't think it is a smart time to be, yes, the percentages might equal out, and it's because of BC assessment, and it's because of these things on the go. It is still extra dollars coming out of people's pockets, and it's not our money. It is their money, and this is the public's money that we are spending. Is there anything in this budget that we can cut? Like I see 2 public works trucks on here. I see $260,000 for recreation and culture. There's a few things in here, like Councillor Woodall mentioned the paving as well. Like we're going to be digging up a bunch of roads and in a year from now. So why are we paving next year or this year when the year after we're going to be digging them up? Is there anything in this budget that we could cut at all? that could save the taxpayers' dime here.
So when we're talking like, some of the pieces that you mentioned there, the way the budget's displayed, so the first page where it gets to that revenue or expenses deficit there, $268,000, that's strictly operating. Anything below is capital is grant funded. So if you cut something there, we're just not taking from a grant. So
This is
revenue
not
neutral.
taking from a grant.
That is taken from a grant, that's capital.
Okay, so this is taken from a grant. Is there anything on this side that's the operating expenses that we could cut?
To Councillor Rebel's comment there a little bit ago, it's thin. We could take a look at it. Duncan and I had some conversations around. There's some money that's set aside there. Hard hotel plan, water negotiation piece with the city of Dawson Creek that's got to come up there. There's maybe a little bit there we could look at, but the majority of what we're seeing in there would be staff related, really, at the end of the day, like when it comes to wages, types of things, and then the cost of mowing grass, the cost of clearing streets, the cost of kind of some of those things.
Garbage contracts and
Garbage
water
contracts,
services.
a lot of like the sale of services piece offset with like some of the transportation and protective services, those types of things are revenue in, revenue out. So if you're talking like the sale of services from water, sewer, and garbage collection, is a revenue neutral piece at the end of the day, because it goes to pay a water bill at Dawson Creek, it goes to pay a contract for garbage and recycling, those types of things. So there's not a whole lot of like discretionary type spending that happens in the village, period. Something we could look at for sure. Like we could break out some of these categories if you're interested and dive a little bit. I could give you some more detail on what kind of makes up those numbers. If you were interested, that's something we could break out for the next time. But yeah.
I am interested in that. Okay. Are you okay if I make a motion to?
Do you need a motion, or do you think a motion? Would you like a motion for that, Duncan, or?
Break up general government round 2. Does that sound okay? Yeah. We can break it up. Yeah, no,
What exactly are you looking for there, I guess would be my question, because like,
I would be
get
looking
down to telling you what a stapler costs, but I don't
No,
think
no,
that's
no,
what
no,
it's
no,
for,
no, I don't
so-
want that. What I do want,
57 staples this year.
Everybody's allowed to.
what I do want to know, and maybe this needs to be a closed item, is I want to see if there's any lines that we can cut to save the taxpayer dollar. That's it. I don't really, it doesn't matter to me which lines, if it's possible that we can cut them, I want to know if we can.
Well, and again,
That's it.
we'd be happy to identify that and identify the consequences that we predict from those cuts too. Yeah, it's not, if there are any lines that we could arbitrarily cut, without any consequence, then we
They would have already cut them.
There's going to be, I'm okay with consequence, I just want to know if there's something that we can cut. Yeah.
Yes, Councillor Rebel?
If I may refine and build upon that, ideally, in my opinion, if the operating expenses could be kind of opened up slightly to see what is contractually obligated, legally obligated, this and this, like essential, like we literally cannot touch it. We have some agreement, something that we already are stuck into, versus what's some additional, fluff to it, right? Some assumed fluff, some variance fluff, some other fluff of like some discretionary spending, right?
core versus discretionary.
Yeah, in a way, right?
I struggle with that wording just because I know there isn't any fluff. I know that almost everything in here, we're a municipality that runs under a union. So there's one contract.
This is what I mean.
Yeah, and so I just
Well, that might be a closed conversation.
So when it comes down to it, right, it's there isn't a lot. Like I know Josh and myself and Duncan have sat down with these, and we've been running a very thin budget for quite some time. And at the end of the day, if municipalities want things like libraries and museums and their snows plowed and their grass cut and their phones answered and able to pay their bills when they come into the office, and plus they also want economic development because they want to bring in other taxpayers, whether it be industrial or commercial or residential. And we've been really lucky because our ECDEB is almost fully funded. Our intern is funded, so we have quite a few staff that we're not even paying for that are bringing in that huge need to the community already, right? Because we're doing a really looking at our zoning, we're trying to open that up. We're looking at economical development to bring people in. We're looking at all these different things to get more of a tax base into Pouce Coupe, and so we're already at the bare minimum. Like we run how many guys on our public works crew? We're down to, we have 3 guys in public works that run the entire town. And then we've been really lucky, we have 2 additional employees in the office that are almost completely funded by grants. So we have the same staff level, and then other than Josh is our addition, that's contract, right? So there really isn't anything. Like I can say these guys can go off, they can break it down, they can do it. And maybe it will give you a bit more of insight, I think, into how tight we're already running everything,
that's our
which
due
would
diligence,
probably
right?
be
Yeah.
beneficial, yeah. My only thing is I don't want people watching the video to hear I just want us to cut the fluff, because their brain's immediately gonna go, oh, so there's fluff. There isn't any.
There's elements on the streets.
There is no fluff.
No,
We are
I get
flufless.
that there's nothing
Yeah.
really that's easy to cut.
Yeah.
I just don't think right now is the time that people can afford it.
It's so difficult because it's like the taxpayers are struggling to afford things, and not just because of the municipal taxes, but because of the school tax and the hospital tax, and they're looking at sub-regional rec tax increases to Dawson Creek, plus we're paying, so we're already paying all those additional things, and then the municipal portion, that goes to funding.
$500 million to the RCMP.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the municipal portion of the taxes that the resident is paying, and that's why it's so important when we put out those tax notices, that we separate, this is what your provincial is. Hospital tax, almost doubled when they built the brand new hospital in Dawson. That hit people hard, and their immediate reaction was the municipalities raised the taxes. Well, it wasn't us, it was the hospital tax doubled. When the brand new school got built in 2009, the school tax ended up going up to cover the cost of paying off the school. So that's why it's so important when we're talking about taxes too, we identify what's provincial and what's municipal. Because our municipal taxes, I think sitting around this table, we've been very careful about how much we are raising those, because everybody's feeling it everywhere, right? And so I think you all need to take note of that as well. At the end of the day, none of us like doing it. We have been extremely careful about how we have done it, and it really has been a sort of covering your eyes and pulling the Band-Aid kind of a thing, right? Yes.
Your Worship, so based on what's been discussed, there's been a good conversation. I think Josh and I, in any event, are thinking that we can probably add a little bit more information within the operating lines, for the next iteration of the report, whatever council decides here. If council wants more detail than that, or if you want us to have a certain perspective, aka if you want us to identify or recommend, cuts to you, then I'd recommend that you guys direct us to do that.
So yes, I'll retract my use of the word fluff and replace it with discretionary spending. With this budget, my interpretation of it is our capital expenses are essentially entirely offset by our capital revenue through grants.
Yeah.
A lot of staff stuff is offset by this, and anyways, what I'm getting at is for us to conduct our due diligence as this body, we should at least interrogate these operating expenses to a level that's a little bit more fine-tuned than the hundreds of thousands. So I am intrigued as to see, for us to be able to do our due diligence, as to, okay, within those numbers, what are our legal, contractual, immutable, we cannot do anything about it, obligations within those operating expenses, versus what would be some sort of discretionary within that, and what potential alternatives we could choose. With this contract, this is a contract, technically it could be explored, and so on and so forth, right? Seeing our options laid out, Because we have been pinching the pennies and really squeezing it. We've been squeezing the lemon tree until there are no lemons, right? Like that's the worry, right? So anyways, that's what I'm getting at with it. I'll conclude myself there, but I do appreciate it. I think we've got to figure out, what are we looking for the revenue to offset, and then therefore what services are we wanting to provide? Those are essentially my understanding of the two pieces we need to identify.
So with the recommendation that's on the floor, Mr. Malkinson, so it's currently talking about the count that the committee receive this capital overview report for information, and it says approve, but we can't approve, so recommend that council approve the 5% scenario in principle as the basis for continuing through the 2026 budget development. If we voted forward with this, could you still include that breakdown and just with this original recommendation, or do you want a second recommendation after this one's voted that really talks about how the information brought back to the next one has to have that breakdown?
Again, I defer to Josh's expertise, but my inclination here is we're happy to break out more information if council wants us to continue with the assumption of 5% moving through the planning process. But I think the scenario where you're asking staff to identify cuts or stuff like that, that's probably where we'd want a little bit more direction. But I'm not sure if Josh has anything for
I
that.
think you encapsulated it there. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Will.
Mayor Reach, instead of pushing this through to the next regular council meeting, I think this just, especially with staff bringing back more information, I think this warrants further discussion. So I'd like to make a motion that we table this for the next committee of the whole meeting.
Seconded by Councilor Wall. Thank you. Any discussion regarding tabling?
Is there going to be an next committee of the whole meeting?
There will be now.
That's right.
Or if we workshop it or something, because that's what we've done in the past is we workshop it, because sometimes we have ideas about it and staff's just like, no, we can't do that, and I don't know if we necessarily need to do that in a council meeting, but I think maybe the whole meeting or a workshop would be good.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think we have done.
We've done workshops on them in past years,
Yeah,
just to go over some of the particulars about the budget and stuff.
Your procedure bylaw says that you'll have a committee of the whole, or your draft procedure bylaw amendment says that you'll have committee of the whole meetings for that purpose. But basically our presumption is that we'll probably just schedule one in advance of your next regular meeting in January, assuming that you guys grant final reading and adoption to the procedure bylaw amendment at your next regular meeting on the 17th.
Okay. Sounds good. Yes.
One thing that I would like to ask, and I think the member opposite referred to it, is it possible to have a scenario presented as a baseline, a control, wherein it is purely based off of the assumption of BC assessment increases, but no additional municipal increase? Is it possible to get a control number where we say, okay, the trend was, basically what I'm saying is the 0% scenario, except taking into account BC assessment, right? Like just purely BC assessment, the village did nothing. I don't know if that's possible. What I'm asking for is, what I think the member opposite was trying to get at is a control number so that we can look at it and go, this is if we didn't increase anything, what dire financial situation are we in, right?
Membership, yes, but not yet. I don't want to speak for Josh, but
Go ahead.
Well, it's just we don't have the final assessed value or assessed figures yet, so we couldn't build something like that at this point.
Well, you wouldn't get those until February, March, isn't it?
Whenever assessments come out, when do those come out? Beginning of February?
Spring? February, March?
Well, appeals by the end of January 31st, right?
Yeah.
Well, 0%, right? Let's assume it's.
My only worry. So are you saying 0% including
0% increase to the mill rate.
0% increase to the mill rate?
Yes.
So can I throw a question back? Of course. Are you saying then if there was a 4% increase to the mill rate, you want us to get a 4% decrease to the tax rate?
No.
Okay.
It would be a 4% increase in the tax rate to balance out.
Or 5% more revenue, or 4% more revenue total.
Right. Okay. Like we could preliminary base something. Like quite honestly, like we could do, because the theoretical number from BC assessments in like that 4 and change %.
Yeah.
Number now.
So like this 5% option is a 5%.
1%.
It's a 1% increase.
Yeah.
To our mill rate.
The like the actual. Okay, so let me think about this very quickly. you'd be talking like $1,700 difference between a 4% and a 5% increase. Like it's not a lot of money.
Isn't it 0.72% or something, a percent of 1,000 or percent of a?
No, I'm just talking like percent, like total tax revenue
Yeah.
percent increase, like 1% or less than 1% is gonna have virtually zero impact, whether it's like 4 and change and 5. Like the difference in that municipal property tax revenue line is gonna be indiscriminate at the end of the day. And just, I could do it, for sure, we could show it.
0% municipal tax increase.
Okay. It's easy enough to do. You're gonna be surprised with how little it is.
As of right now, I'm unaware, sorry Mayor, I did not raise my hand for this. As of right now, I'm unaware of any municipality in BC not proposing a tax increase, an increase in their mill rate. And I'm unaware of any that are not. So if we could be the municipality that eats the $1,700 and you know what I mean? Like eats the $1,700 and is that one?
We already have a deficit at 5%.
Oh yeah.
The bill always comes due, that's the.
The bill comes due.
Whether
Can we
these
find
people pay it?
$1,700 to save?
Whether these people pay the
think we can.
$1,700.
No, but like, no, I'm not gonna quote you on
Okay, it's
$1,700.
coming to them, it's coming in eventually.
The point is, it's gonna be a very minimal change. It's gonna be, let's say
It's gonna cost us
$5
more
grand.
staff
Can we,
to figure it out, what it's gonna cost, and what the change is gonna be.
that's funny.
All right, I'm gonna hold the vote on tabling to the next committee of the whole meeting. All those in favor?
Did you get a seconder for that?
Yes, Councillor Wall, and that was unanimous and carried. All right, okay, moving on to item 8.2, Infrastructure Master Plan Phase 1. Recommend that the Committee of the Whole recommend that Council approve Phase 1 of the 2026 Infrastructure Master Plan consisting of Phase 1A, Water Model Development and Water System Capital Improvement Plan, Phase 1B, Sewer System Capital Improvement Plan, and that the committee direct council to direct staff to proceed with the procurement, development, and funding alignment for the implementation in 2026. Seconded by Councillor Wall. Thank you. All right. Any discussion regarding that?
Your Worship, I separated this one out and I wanted to make sure that council had the opportunity to review some of this work because I know it is particularly important to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the stack of projects that were discussed during the budget that this is something that you guys will want us to advance pretty promptly in January. So I wanted to separate it out, and if the resolution passes, then we'll begin to draft an RFP or a tender.
I think this looks great, and thank you so much for understanding the importance of this for this council, and I can't wait to see what it's done. I'm going to be devastated to see it when it's done. I'm going to be honest.
The cost, the price tag.
Oh my god.
Growing communities fund.
Oh, that won't be enough money. Anyway, please.
I would, if we can use the Growing Communities Fund, I would like to.
It will be a drop in the bucket for how much.
I highly suspect the Growing Communities Fund is eligible.
Yes.
Their criteria and FAQs that they put out did say that feasibility work of this kind is eligible, but on green light is what Josh and I are waiting the feedback on.
Councillor Raffle?
Sorry, just to clarify with this, when we're talking water, is this the potable water system, not the storm water system?
Stormwater?
It's
Yeah.
purely potable water,
Correct.
and the system, I guess, would pressurize the fire hydrants as well.
Correct.
Okay, and so essentially it's looking at the system, seeing where there are deficiencies, seeing where there's weaknesses in pipes, issues with diameter, all this stuff. When you say digital twin, that's just getting at, a model that can replicate the physical conditions of the system so that an engineering firm can look at it and say, oh, this is an issue with turbidity and so on and so forth.
It's a digital representation of the system, so it maps like how they behave, where they're weak, and what needs to be fixed first. That's the idea.
Councillor Hood?
I think it's a good timing to get on this because with the federal government's push on housing, you're going to see, because a lot of municipalities are in the same boat we are, aging infrastructure, and they're going to be in that boat where in order to take on this new housing that the provincial or federal governments are wanting, there's going to have to be infrastructure grants made available either federally or provincially. So at least getting on this puts us in a position where as that comes available, go after it, right? So, because, and really, it's one of those things all of us ran you know, and we're in these seats because we want to see this community continue. Well, the reality is we need to make sure our water and sewer are in place, right? Otherwise, we just spent $2.7 million plus on the Lagoon project. So now that we've got that done, it'd be nice to start working our way back through town and getting everything up into this century.
Yes, Councilor
My standard compliance and liability question, is the proposed process displayed here meet the standards of compliance for how this project would be generally approached by,
Are you speaking regarding procurement?
No, what I'm saying is the way that this is laid out in the various steps, is this the industry standard? Is this the best usual procedure or process for approaching such a matter as this?
Through your worship, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is that I engage with people smarter than myself.
Okay. I don't know if there are those folks, but there we go.
Especially for a compliment, your worship.
You totally got it. Good on you. All right. Any other discussion?
Ask for any more bonus.
Jimmy.
Yeah, of course. Always talking about Jimmy when the compliments bust out. I'm gonna call the question then. All those in favor? And that's unanimous and carried. Wonderful job. Okay, moving on to item 8.3. Somebody wants to read that? Oh, does it have to come from me because I'm the one who did it? Recommend that the committee of the whole recommends council to approve the 2026 council portfolio assignments as presented. Can I get a second? Seconded by Councilor Whittle. Discussion? I was like, who's gonna raise their hand first? Councilor Whittle?
Alright, so it's great that we have these portfolios. The way I see the portfolios working, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't see it as one of those things where council's required to be there at every one of their meetings or have their nose right up that organization's butt that we're, you know, the liaison for. Where I see these roles as more as where we go in, we touch base, and we're an avenue for that organization if they need advocation, right, within the community, we're back to council, that kind of stuff, right, to support them is where I see the role. And I know there's been, with some of the organizations, I've got the feeling there's been an expectation that somebody from council is going to be there all the time and be an active member of it, and I don't necessarily see these roles of it. If we wanted to be active members of those organizations, we would have went and joined those organizations. So I see this more as a consulting / assistance role in these, and I just figured I'd bring that back to the rest of council because there seems to be some confusion over the level of commitment that's required for some of these roles, right? Or that the organization wants, and we don't necessarily have that time commitment on top of our other commitments, or that organization doesn't necessarily want us sticking our nose in their business, right? So
I know for some organizations, the Goose City Public Library reached out to me. I've missed their past like 3 or 4 meetings, just my schedules haven't worked. And I spoke with them last week to kind of touch base with a few things that were going on. And they're facing quorum issues. So they're down to 3 board members. And now what's going on is they're kind of to the point where they actually like need me to go to every meeting until they can get more board members to sign up. So just when it comes to those, it's a bit more difficult. I did explain to the public library that I would try my absolute best to be at every one of them. We are getting into conference season, so I was like, can't guarantee anything. But for some, it is quorum. Some of them could potentially be facing quorum issues as well, so just maybe keep those lines of communication.
So regarding the library, you and Councilor Johnson are the only 2 residents, you're the only 2 that are actually eligible to sit on the library board because we're not residents of the village the way the bylaws are, even though we're on council, we're not eligible. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the
We're not
library act.
eligible to be board members.
Well, no pressure, Rick.
No pressure on you guys, but it's just one of those things.
Good point. Good point. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, actually, Councilor Rattle and then Councilor Wall. Sorry.
Well, actually, 2 pieces now. Interestingly, I don't know if these portfolios make us voting members of those committees.
So I had this conversation with Mr. Melkinson. You may.
Maybe that's old stuff.
Yeah, a delineation to draw between being an appointee to, a actual separate, constituted body versus being a This chart here conflates it a little bit. There's maybe you have to, I don't know about the museum, I'd have to check your bylaws and see what that kind of operates, but by statute, the RD, that's a, definite appointment. And, when Mayor Beach goes to the RD meetings, she's expected to represent the interests of the RD as a whole, rather than Village of Hoops. It's actually statutory
Very
carve-out.
interesting.
It's there's very few carve-outs in legislation that require the municipal appointee to behave in that way. The library board is also one of those other, rare ones where they are a representative of the library board. They're expected to wear that hat when they're there. Obviously, they come with the, experience and the, background that they have, and council has some political pull on whoever the appointee to the RD is. They can withdraw, appointments at any particular time, but it's an interesting dance. But yeah, the appointee versus the liaison, I think, is a good delineation to reflect on here. I think by and large, the appointments that are listed here are liaison roles, where you're going back and forth and conveying information between the parties, whereas in those other examples that I referenced earlier, you are representing that organization and making fiduciary obligation to that organization.
The municipal library, you are actually a voting member. We had to look into it this week for some of the things that have come out, especially with their quorum issues that they've been having at the museum. I don't know, it depends on the bylaws of that individual. Like, I think the Northeastern BC Accessibility Committee, or we have a voting member on there. We have a voting member on NDIT, voting member on PRD, voting member on Municipal Public Library, voting member on Poughkeepsie Food Bank. I don't know about the museum. You're a voting member on the Senior Board. You're a voting member on. You're not a voting member on the Legion Board.
You'd just be a liaison.
You're just a yeah. So there are some you are and some you aren't.
Could we break that out, like, before we bring this back to the regular council meeting, could we bust that out? Which ones are liaison positions versus which ones are, have a typical board member or voting members? Because that makes a difference on, the level of commitment, commitment that you put to it, right? Because I know, like, when I was sitting on the RD board, the RD got a higher level of commitment because I had an obligation there, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Versus, the food bank this last go around, I've stuck my head in twice, and I've touched base with a couple of the members to say, hey, if you need anything, reach out. But other than that,
You're all doing a great job.
yeah, good job.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you've recommended that I become the oil and gas liaison.
I figured you'd like that.
I am very happy with that. I would also like to suggest, however, that if I were to become the oil and gas liaison, that I also sit on the Southeast Synergy, as it is oil and gas related.
The only reason why I looked at that, the only reason why I didn't put you on the South Peace Synergy is actually a lot of the PRRD board members that I work with on the PRRD are part of the Synergy group as well, and there's a bit of cross that happens. So what is happening, so that's the only reason. What's happened to me in the past is they've all gone to something, and I think it was Councillor Whittle or Councillor Johnson that was on the Synergy board before, and they came back to the board table and they were discussing. I had no idea what was going on, and then I found it from the chair, who was Director Hebert at that time in his first term as chair, and that there's a bit of a cross that happened. That's the only reason why I didn't actually put you on it.
That's fine.
That's why, because there's sometimes a bit of a cross thing, Yes.
And my last piece of that is internal committees. What do we want to do with them? I think they're a great idea, but we actually haven't really put them to task.
Well, so myself and Mr. Melkinson discussed the internal committees a little bit, because we were sort of had that overall question mark. And while we're not sitting down at these committee meetings, right, like when it comes to municipal infrastructure planning, I am doing that. I do that every week when I sit down with Mr. Melkinson and we're going over budgets, and we're going over our plans for asset management and different infrastructure work. When it comes to recreation and special events, that's often coming to us from Iron Wolf, right? Or from the Disc Golf Association. It's coming straight to this board and to this council, and that gives you as that, primary member or alternate member to really, dive deeper into that relationship if that's what you're interested in doing. When it comes to public safety and crime prevention, you guys did that when you went to UBCM and you fought for the crosswalk. So you are actually doing these things. You're just not sitting down every month taking minutes going, okay, I did this, and that. You're already doing them. So you're just doing them as a part of your regular advocacy. And it is nice to have the option there to be able to be like, okay, well, I am actually a part of this committee, and so something has come up. And so, hey, I figured this thing out, I'd like to meet about it. It's kind of nice to have that option, which is why I didn't want to get rid of it. Yes.
I appreciate the sentiment. However, my understanding of the original striking of this was to actually have members of the public, members of the community, and actually have those sit-down meetings.
I know, people are taxed.
It's a volunteer crisis for sure.
It really is.
But basically, we've got less than a year left in this current mandate for this body. And so I'm wondering how we want to approach that. Are we basically, long and short is, sure, we're always advocates for the community.
Yeah.
But are we actually should we actually have structured meetings following the initial concept with members of the public, so on and so forth, the whole shebang?
I honestly don't know how much public attendance we would get, because we are in a bit of a volunteer dry spell. A lot of people are working, kids are in sports or in school, they're exhausted. And so, while the hope is to one day get there, I don't think we are there. And so, I would hate to overburden staff and yourselves to try to make additional committee meetings or, plan different committee events and so I guess my question to you would then be, you're on the recreation and special events, and if you're out in the community and you're hearing from members of the public of, man, I wish there was like a rec committee I could join, then that's when you can say like, oh, well, we actually have one. We're on a volunteer dry spell. Would you be interested in coming down and maybe we could start? Do you have a plan? Is there like let's meet, right? We could also put these committees back out. We did initially put them in the Village Voice asking for volunteers. We didn't get any. We can do another volunteer call again. I think we're going to be doing one for the public library coming up pretty soon anyway. So we could easily put these in and see if there's any interest from there. But if not, then we're just going to continue to keep advocating and then with the hope of eventually getting them there.
If I may be so bold, what I would hope for the Recreation and Special Events Committee for this upcoming year is to identify the gaps in recreation opportunities and the pitfalls that prevent user groups from utilizing our facilities. I think bringing back some reports, some understanding from the members of the community, actually sitting down and figuring that all out, working with whoever appropriate member, I think that would be a huge piece, is bringing that all together. Because in a way, it's a liaison role with, say the folks that deal with the baseball diamonds, or the folks that deal with the community center, or the folks that deal with this, that, and the other, right? Or the groups that would like to use the community center, but say, oh, well, I don't want to do it because this, and
Does
this.
it cost $750 in cleaning fees?
So it's kind of identifying those pitfalls, providing suggestions and stuff to bring back to this body, but in a way, it's like a liaison role for that. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking it's possible, shoot for a reasonable bar here.
Yeah. So would you be interested in having that put into the Village Voice for a volunteer call again?
I think that hypothetically, you could empower the chairs to go out and create their committee.
Do it. Off you go.
Okay, I've got the stamp.
Aren't I the chair of that committee?
Yeah, you're on
Joint
it.
chair, co-chair, I guess. Is it safe to assume the primary
He just
members
wants
of
to spend more
co-chairs?
time. He misses you.
But to clarify, the primary members are effectively co-chairs, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Done.
Okay.
What's do I have to do anything on that?
No, you're fine.
Do I have to do anything on that?
Follow him.
I just
All
want to
right,
make
just
sure.
smile and nod.
All right, I'm gonna call the question then. All those in favor of the portfolios? Okay, thank you. That was unanimous. You seem hesitant. I was like, oh no.
Holding him out, he said.
Okay. Before I read 8.4, I just have to ask Mr. Milkinson. I did go through and answer questions 1 through 5.
Did you?
I wrote my note. I have it here.
Yeah.
Now, I can send that off to you or send that off to Taya. I wasn't sure who to send it to, so I've just been hanging on to it, but I did take the time to answer questions 1 through 5. I hope every one of you did.
It's on my to-do list.
It was on your to-do list. So, at this point in time, I'm wondering if maybe we should just receive it for discussion. Discuss what each of us is thinking for questions 1 through 5, and then it will give Taya a bit more information to bring back.
This is exactly her approach here, where
Yes.
she's basically, the whole game plan here is, hey council, here's a cool tool that you have in your strategic plan.
Yeah.
Here's some general information on it. Why don't you tell us your political objectives? And then once you get that firm to us, then we will present you with a draft bylaw that hopefully meets those objectives that you have.
Okay. Are you gonna read 8.4? I haven't read it yet. Okay, read it.
I'm going to recommend, that the committee of the whole recommend to council, direct staff to prepare a revitalization tax exemption bylaw, and right now we're going for discussion.
Great, sure, perfect. Can I get a seconder on that one? Seconded by Councilor Rebel. Perfect, so what I'm looking for from you gentlemen is I think we should go through those beautiful questions that is it her last name Cade? No, it's Can. Thank you. And Ms. Can laid out, and really look at those as options, so when she's watching this video, she can go, okay, this is the direction to take.
Taya sends her regrets, it's her birthday tonight.
Oh, happy birthday to her. No worries, we can write the whole thing down.
And hopefully the memo was helpful, just for your guys's, I trust that most members of council are kind of familiar with these kinds of programs, or I can give you a bit of a background if you want to get the conversation rolling, or?
Okay, well, hang on, let's call the question on, all those in favor of discussion. I gotta technically get a vote on it. Okay, Councilor Wall, thank you for being so patient.
I would like to go, I don't have an answer, to be honest, I haven't written mine in. I do have answers for 2 through 5. I don't have an answer for 1. I would like to know, Mayor, what you have, because I have some answers, like, for number 2, I want it to include facade improvements. I would like to see it be for adding additional basement suites and increasing the value of people's homes. I'd like to see it for, commercial properties, making them more rentable, things like that.
Okay, well, how about this? This is what I've got. For program scope, I said A2, commercial and mixed use, because these have been identified as needs in our community. Okay, so from studies I have seen and recommendations and what we've seen throughout the province, I thought that really fit in quite nicely with the village of Quskoubi, the focus on commercial and mixed use. When it came to eligible activities, let me bring this up. I thought that it should include B2, B3, B4, and B5, because frankly, the more the better. So that's renovations and interior upgrades, additions and structural improvements, the facade improvements and accessibility upgrades, because the province is pushing accessibility like crazy, as well as mixed use developments. I thought all 4 of those should meet the requirement, because when you look at some of the commercial and mixed use that's currently in the community, those are some of the things that it's definitely missing or lacking. Yes.
I would, so looking at that for number 1, I was kind of on the fence. I'm kind of leaning towards we should include everything. Like, if people want to make their homes more valuable, that can increase taxes for us.
The only reason I didn't include everything, I'm going to play devil's advocate, okay, is because we are currently, our taxes do not fund just the general cost of operations. And so if we're going to start offering tax deals to the entire municipality, my concern is that we're going to take away from that pot we already don't have enough water in. That makes sense? Yes.
There's 2 ways you could design the program. I think that gets in a little bit into, C, basically, but council could design the program to basically be tax revenue neutral, so to speak, where there's no impact to the overall tax revenue that the village is receiving. AKA, you could design it so that it's only increased values and assessments that are exempted from taxation. The differential between your
I thought about that. You know what my concern is about that? Is that I feel like people will feel like it's smoke and mirrors. Like we've said one thing and then really we've made it so unachievable that it's really useless. That's where my worry was, is that if we make it so it's only if you raise the value of your property by 50,000 or by 100,000 and people don't quite get there, they're gonna have that smoke and mirrors feeling of like, oh, so you're kind of full of crap because you said this, but I tried and I never technically got there, and so it doesn't actually exist, right? That's where I was a little bit concerned about that. Yes.
So on that note, there's a couple things that can be done. You can move that project threshold, minimum project threshold value down, right? You can decrease that to a 10 to 15,000 range. Because coming back to Mr. Malkinson's thing, if we do it as additional that we're exempting versus the actual, that impacts our budget, right? So if somebody goes and spends a bunch of money, they upgrade their house, they increase the value of their house, and then we decrease their taxes by 5% versus not. That now comes back to Josh. Josh has now got to calculate that into our overall thing, and that's going to vary from year to year, which creates more administrative, more work. Where if we do it where it's existing, well, you get your exemption for 5 years, well then your tax rate basically freezes right where it's at for 5 years. We don't have to screw with our budget. We don't lose money out of our budget for the next 5 years, like, you know, for that current fiscal year or the next 5 years, we stay status quo on that.
Well,
So that's why I think, you know, like what Mr. Malkinson said, I think it's additional value that it adds to it, and a lot of other municipalities are like that as well, too, right? Is you get exempted from the additional value that you add to your property. And I think moving the threshold down from a $50,000 threshold down to a $20,000 or $15,000 threshold also makes more people eligible for it as well, so then it can actually be better utilized throughout the community than versus having to go back to finance and say, oh hey, sorry, Bob, Tom, and Harry just did a bunch of work to their house, so you know, knock 30,000 out of our budget for this year, right?
So
versus our numbers stay the same, and then we can budget for it.
My devil's advocate with that then is that if we do the entire municipality, including industrial and commercial, a commercial property achieves $10,000 to $15,000 way faster and way easier than a residential property does.
Yeah, but commercial property also costs more to do the upgrades to and everything else, because I can go add $10,000 worth of value to my house by, you know, quite easily, right, by renovating a room, adding some lighting, changing out some flooring. Where to add value to a commercial building, you're putting in quite a bit more for infrastructure. So I think it still works, and you know what, it gives people like, you know, say, you know, Redwood in town, for instance, right? It gives them that incentive that, hey, they turn around and they clean up their facade and they do a bunch of improvements to their property. Well, now it gives them a bit of a tax break, so now not only has that employer in our community or business owner community put that outlay to better our community and make their business look better and look, so they've also now achieved that tax incentive for the next 3 to 5 years, which is going to keep them in our community. And again, it doesn't screw with the administrations, and our tax revenue stays the same, right? We're not having to claw back money.
Yes, Councilor Wall.
Wouldn't it be amazing if there was a middle ground between both of you, right here, on page 2? So if we go with D5, we could have different terms for residential versus commercial.
That is true, yeah. And when I was looking at it, I chose D5 for different terms between residential versus commercial, because I think larger commercial should look at a 10-year sliding scale, where residential should look at a 5-year. Just because commercial is often taking on so much more.
We could also change the threshold there too. We could say, hey, for residential, we want to see a $10,000 increase in your assessed value, but for commercial, we want to see that higher.
Yeah, but you could do a sliding scale and say for every $10,000 worth of value that you add, it equates to a 2-year exemption. Right? So it's a sliding scale, so somebody wants to come in and they want to drop $2 million into their building and clean up a building for $2 million, then they're maybe looking at for the next 15 years, they're looking at a tax deal, right? That might bring business in.
Max is 10, but yes, I get what you're saying.
Right?
So now, okay, so let's go all the way back to number 1. Is council interested in the entire municipality,
Yes.
or a commercial or mixed use
I
only?
think the entire municipality.
I will make the motion that
No, hang on,
we're
gonna go through.
It's not seconded, you're done.
So council is interested in the entire municipality. I'm just trying to make this nice and easy for.
Right, because you also look at what our zoning is and what we've talked to zoning about,
Okay.
is making it more permissible within the community to do stuff, so this should be in line with what our zoning is, or potentially is.
Okay, and Councillor Rattle?
Okay, so let's define our core. And so the idea is with this, that ultimately, like, not to be a negative Nelly here, or to be so scrupulous, but ultimately the municipality wants more taxation revenue.
Yeah, that's the whole point.
And then property owners will be incentivized to increase the value of their property because they don't get to immediately have the municipal portion of the tax burden. Obviously, if their assessment goes up, half of it will already go up with the province's stuff, right? So that's not gonna, that's gonna still impact them. They'll still feel a tax hit. I think we have to be clear about, are we looking at assessed value results or project value? I do not think we should go down the path of project value assessment.
No, it's based off of assessed value.
No, but I'm saying C, right? It's got clearly minimum project value as the trigger.
So we should go with C.
But I just want to say the cautionary tale, if you go for project value, you can spend a hell of a lot of money and get a hell of a lot of nothing. I could do 60 coats of paint, spend $10,000 and get no value in my property. But say I did it, right?
Well, the first coat of paint and your 10th coat of paint add the same amount of value.
I don't know.
Hang on, Mr. Malkinson is trying to make coffee. This is extremely important. Let him speak. We need more coffee,
So
guys.
there are two different things to consider there. So on the assessed value increase, that's an important control to protect tax revenue via this bylaw being adopted.
Thank you, Jimmy.
It takes time though to show up, right?
That's a measurement, that can come on later. The section B was intended to be what kind of behaviors does council want to see through this bylaw? And the charter is written very broadly on this. Some of the examples that were provided in the correspondence from the province said, okay, even if you have greater dwelling units per square foot per parcel size, you can receive an exemption. If you install solar panels on a roof, that can trigger an exemption, right? So it's not just investment into the property that could trigger an exemption under the scenario. But the thing so it's kind of a two-pronged process. What behavior does council want to see in the community from, folks that are investing in their properties that would trigger an exemption? But if you want to make sure that you're insulated from any risks to your tax revenue, you probably want to tie that activity back to the assessed value increase to make sure that you're protecting yourself.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
With Councillor Wall has been waiting.
So on that point, Mr. Malkinson, what I would suggest is, in the application process, someone applies, says they're doing a project, they're gonna do an application and say they want to apply for an exemption. And when we see a 1-year increase of that X amount of percent that they can tie back to that project, then they're eligible for that exemption. But they can apply for it. If they don't reach that target, they don't get it.
Your worship, more or less, yes. Basically, the process requires that you guys enter into an agreement with somebody. So if somebody meets all the requirements of the application, which is probably the behavior that you want to see, then the agreement would basically wait and see what the assessed value increase would be in year 2, and based on that differential, the exemption would be granted.
So C1 problem solved.
Yeah, yes.
Just
Mr. Kirata.
Just clarification question, does the exemption go away if the assessed value falls?
Yes, that's the way that you can write it. Yeah.
My only worry there is like you have.
We're gonna start losing money.
Yeah.
Yes, I know, that's my worry as well.
I'm talking to the attorney, your worship, sorry.
Yes, Councillor Wood.
So what my concern would be too, because I'm running into this actually, I'm in the process of renovating a place at Spirit River right now. And part of the issue with that is, it's bank controlled, so the bank will only release the money once they've come up and the bank's done the assessment to prove that that work's been done, right? And it's added X amount of value to it. So who's gonna police this? Because currently with the way our bylaws are, there's a lot of work you can do to the inside of your house, and a lot of work you can do to your house where you don't need to pull permits, you don't need to tell anybody what you're doing. And who's gonna come back and assess it? Like, do we have is the building inspector gonna go do it? Do we have an auditor that's gonna go say we added this value, right? Are we gonna send Jimmy, because Jimmy's good at everything we ask him to do? Are we gonna send Jimmy to go look at it? Like, who's gonna police this? And then the other part of it is like, because you might go look at something and you might say, well, the perceived value is this, Well, we take Ray in there, who's done construction for, you know, most of his life, and he might see it as a different perceived value, right? So what's the metric that we're going off of? And the other thing, if we're using BC, like BC assessments, friggin' BC assessments drives by and looks at it. You can have a shitty house, a crappy house, and you can make the siding look really nice, and they're gonna jack up your rate. You can have like the house that looks like a crack shack, but it's immaculate inside, and it's not gonna touch your rate because it's up to self-reporting. So you could have made a 10-bedroom mansion and you told them, well, it's 2-bedroom, 1 bath. They're going to tax you on a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, not a 10-bedroom mansion, right? Especially if it looks like a crack shack.
Yes, Councilor.
I have the answer to both of those questions.
Oh. You could see with all the ones.
I actually have.
Speaking of testimony.
I do not want your job, sir. No, I don't. So question 1 was, who decides what the value is? That is BC assessment. So you can appeal your assessment, and you can bring that assessment value up, and they can actually send an auditor out to look at a project once it's done. And I've seen people do it before, where someone from BC assessment will show up. They will look. They'll have a before and an after because you're applying for a tax exemption. These are quite common in larger.
And they'll plug it into the computer, and the computer's full of crap.
But they'll plug it into the computer. They can say whatever they want. But the point is that taxable value has increased. So let's say, for example, there's a property that increases in 10% in value. We get 10% more taxes off of that because BC assessment said so. So it doesn't matter if it's done or not. It matters that BC assessment says it's 10% more value.
Okay, right. So then going back to the eligible activities, I like B2 through to B5. Would you guys want B1 through to B5? Or are we wanting to nitpick some of them?
I would love B1 through B5 because new construction, we have a lot of empty, vacant lots right now.
Yeah.
If we could see some of that infill development, or especially in our industrial zone, a company comes in and says, hey, I'm going to build a warehouse in here, I would love it to be new construction as well.
Now, if we were to go B1 to B5, is that almost too open? Like we're just throwing caution to the wind at this point, and we're just like, we're welcoming everything. Like,
some things that we will need to carve out speak to Councillor Woodall's comments in the sense of, okay, what activities that pertain to interior improvement or an interior upgrade would likely be captured by BC assessment. Is that something that ties looking into?
yeah, because I was on, you've made a great point about the interior.
Well, the other thing too is what's stopping me from, say Mayor Beach takes her house and she does a bunch of work to her house and she applies for the exemption, she gets the exemption for 2 or 3 years, right, or whatever date it is, say she gets it for 3 years. At the end of that 3 years, what's stopping her from phoning out BC assessments and challenging her assessment and saying, oh, hey, this is now age, this is now weather, suckle into BC assessments, and they drop her assessment. Now we've lost out on that potential revenue because now the person's used the system that's available to them, they've taken advantage of it during the upgrade.
Well, now they're all going to be doing this.
Yeah. Well, I unfortunately, I'm the kind of guy that thinks of this because I would probably do it. But the reality is in 3 years' time, you can go back and challenge that assessment, and you're well within your right to challenge that assessment. And essentially, we're the ones, us and the province to an extent, lose on the revenue. Right. So what's to prevent it?
You can do a clause in there that basically says, if there is a net decrease, from the reference year to year 3, that you're, protected from that. Like there's a scenario. I think the similar scenario would be some communities have mills, etc. And you'll see a calamity clause in there that says, okay, if you sell the mill, you're not getting your tax exemption anymore. If you close the mill, you're not getting it. If there's a blow up, and then obviously,
Yeah, because you get a downturn, like, the way we're headed, right? You get a bigger downturn in the economy because the federal or provincial government have to head up their butts and keep driving business to Alberta.
So
when property prices start to come down,
for saving the headache from everybody then, are we looking at not option B2? And leaving the renovations and interior upgrades out and leaving it with new builds, additions and structural improvements?
No, I think doing improvements, like interior improvements, especially with the way climate's changing and stuff, like doing stuff like upgrading your heating systems, your cooling systems, your windows, better insulation, that kind of stuff, I don't think we want to discourage that. I just think we need to protect ourselves from the people that are gonna take advantage of those loopholes,
And
right?
you're saying there are mechanisms that work.
You guys have a lot of, the charter is written very favorably on this. You can basically, you can write a lot of things into this bylaw, but very wide, right?
Yeah, because that'd be my only concern is just like, because we want to allow, especially we're open up our bylaws and our zoning. And allow people to do more with their property. It'd be nice to say, hey, you know what, we opened it up so you can do more with your property, but we also opened up these tax exemptions for you as well, so now you get a bit of a break on this improvement that you want to do. But at the same time, we also need to protect ourselves, right?
Councillor Wong?
So right now we've done A1, B1 through B5.
Yes, that's what I've got written down.
Yep, C1.
Is everybody in agreement with C1? You want it to be that 10,000 minimum, or do you want to go
I
C2?
think 10,000, because that's as simple as doing your goes is a $10,000 hit easy.
Oh yeah, and then if we go with D5, we can do different terms for different types of residential and commercial, but we could also do different types of, we can make it different percentages for different types of projects as well.
Yeah.
We could, so we, like, let's say you increase the home value $10,000, because we're going off the assessed value.
Mm-hmm.
What if we say, like, theoretically, we're not fully tax exempting that property. We could say for the next 3 years, you're gonna have a 5% decrease in your property tax on your property because you only did a $10,000.
We'd have to develop a matrix, I think.
We could develop a matrix to figure that out though. But we can encourage other forms of development. Be like, if you're building an auxiliary suite or you're building or on your property, that's a larger exemption than the
Or yeah, building on an infill lot or something like
Building
that,
on
is
an
larger
infill
and versus, you know, renovating your
And
house.
is that capacity available?
Or if someone comes in and builds a $10 million facility in our industrial zone, we could say, hey, we're gonna exempt that entire facility for the next few years while you get that going, while you're building.
Sliding scale.
A sliding scale kind of thing, right?
All that.
I'm only keeping you blind.
So we're at D5. So we've got A1, B1 through 5, C1, and D5.
Okay, and then hang on. Councillor Gravel has a question, and then I actually have questions regarding E. So, go Councillor Gravel.
Just hearing the discussion, because I do find this discussion helpful. I am all for this. I really love it. We got to do it right, though. We got to, you know, and be able to have the staff capacity and not just shovel it all over to BC Assessment to manage all this of them getting a billion phone calls and us having 10,000 things. But the other thing too is as we open up our zoning bylaws, which I would like to see, then all of a sudden a lot of folks will be able to do a lot of things by right within their zoning, and then this helps them to then, you know, consensually and freely, you know, disclose to the village like, oh, hey, I've done this, and get an incentive. In order for, but the incentive structure has to be in a way, the idea really overall is that the municipality over the long run gets more revenue and keeps that revenue, right? But if somebody is going to do something that's $10,000, if they get a little sliver of tax off of it, that's not an incentive, that's a piece. So I'm trying to figure out, because our taxes are still very low, really. Like at the end of the day, it's a couple of $100, you know, at most people are paying $1,000, $2,000 really, and the village is only getting like $1,000 of that, right? Like let's just simplify it. Let's say $2,000 tax bill for the homeowner, property owner. Half, $1,000 is actually coming to the village. If I spend $10,000 on whatever, you know, a jacuzzi in my basement because I want to use more water, and you know, a couch because we didn't find that loophole. Anyways, let's say I did something. If it's $10,000 and I get what, like 10 or $100 off my taxes for 2 years, for 10 years, like I'm gonna get if I get $100 off a year, but then it decreases, I'm not even gonna hit 1,000. So what I'm worried is, and I don't mean to be so devil's advocate about this, I'm genuinely trying to build an incentive structure to encourage people to do novel things, not just get a little bonus for the thing they're already gonna do. How do we, I know this is a tough question because our taxes are so low, our revenue is so low with that. How do we actually make this an incentive structure instead of just a bonus for people that were gonna do the thing anyways?
We can jack taxes higher and have a higher percentage.
So the
I'm
Black
joking,
Friday
I'm
sale
joking.
model, you
No.
jack the price high, and then you drop it on a sale price.
Nice little
do
price,
Amazon does
$4.99.
Black Friday, the regular price is $7.99.
Exactly, right?
$4.99.
Black Friday
Like,
tax.
you get where I'm coming from, right? Like, genuinely, like, really, end of the day, like, if I, like, as a homeowner, what's gonna incentivize me to do something? It's, I would actually come away with a good portion of that covered, really. And I know that might not be possible, because even at $10,000, that person's not gonna get it all back.
Well, that's the thing is $10,000 in the shape of a reno isn't very much money in the grand scheme.
Oh, it's a sneeze.
It's a bathroom or it's some flooring, but at the end of the day, $10,000 is a lot of money for a person, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those.
For example, let's say we want to incentivize a secondary suite, right? More density, more people, more vibrancy in the streets, and more shops and bars, cafes, yada yada. Anyways, we need more people. So, okay, you say you want to build development. How do you incentivize a secondary suite? What does that cost? 50 grand, 100
Yeah, but we're also
grand?
increasing your densification, so again, I think that a lot of this stuff can be addressed with the matrix, where, you know, something like it hits over a certain threshold or increases density, triggers a higher level of incentive versus a $10,000 rental versus a $50,000 rental.
I'm just saying, I don't know if this is within municipal powers, but I'm just saying, like, you know, what gets people would be, you know, cheaper lending rates, cheaper insurance rates, this and that. Like, I know that might be outside of municipal jurisdiction, but I'm saying, like, if you're to incentivize, like, those are powers that are bigger. But anyways, what I'm saying is it has to be a genuine incentive. Really, I love the idea, but I really don't want, at the end of the day, it just serving the guy who's already gonna put in a new bathroom. He's like, you know what, I'll do that this year, why not? I'll go through the rigmarole. Or somebody says, I'm gonna save $100 over 5 years, I'm not even bothering to fill out the paperwork. That's what I don't wanna see, right? I wanna see this work.
I have a motion.
Oh, I hate it when you do this. Oh, I really do.
And Jimmy's gonna need to be ready.
No. We're in the midst, we're busting, we're doing.
I got it.
Oh no.
We're good.
Okay.
A motion that the committee of the whole recommend that council direct staff to prepare a revitalization tax exemption bylaw containing the following elements: the program scope of the entire including the entire municipality, eligible activities including new construction, residential and commercial, renovations, including interior upgrades, additions and structural improvements, facade improvements and accessibility upgrades, and mixed-use developments. Eligibility thresholds being a minimum assessed value increase on a sliding scale that can be determined by staff during the project or during the
So C1?
Yep. That the exemption durations of
D5.
different terms for residential and commercial can also be on a sliding scale. And the administrative requirements being that the program be applied for before the building permit is issued, with an application fee of $100, that the project completion time be
1 to 3 years, is what I was thinking.
1 to 3 years is what I was also thinking, so that's good. I did 24 months, but whatever. That the delegated approval authority for this exemption be the CAO, with no end date to the program, and that the program is non-transferable to future owners.
But that the program be reviewed within 5 years to see if it's successful or not.
Yes, I'm fine with that friendly amendment.
Can I get a second on that? Is anybody willing to second that?
No.
There we go.
There you go. Okay, I have a question. I have a question regarding that. So E1, my question regarding the administrative application timing before the build permit is issued or after, would it be beneficial to staff to have the tax exemption application completed before the building permit? Or could that risk staff putting in a bunch of extra work only for the landowner to be unable to get the proper permits? That was my worry there.
True enough. I think this one, it's good. I think if somebody meets all of the requirements, you know, after the fact that we would decline them, you know, seems to be a bit of a challenge to me as well. If they've met all of the requirements and they've gone through the process of getting a building permit, and they only later on through the process realize that they'd be eligible for an exemption of this kind, you know, it would seem odd to exclude them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just worried about putting it in such a tight window.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay, we're after, whatever.
Or in concert with I'm assuming we're processing the building permit.
I said it that way because not every project requires a building permit.
Which brings me to my next question.
What's your question?
So, because a lot of interior stuff, a lot of stuff doesn't, within our current municipality does not require a permit. I hate permits as much as the next guy for crap stuff, but for purposes of administrating this program, right, so we actually know people are doing interior work, because we don't know people are doing stuff that they don't pull a permit. Is it within our current bylaws, right, because there's only certain permits that need inspection, right, so I'm not thinking a permit that requires inspection, but maybe like a $25 or $30, you know, renovation permit or something along those lines, or a capital or an improvement permit.
Right.
The minimal cost, right? Because I don't want to hit people in the pocketbook because we're already going to give them a tax exemption, right? But just something so that we know that there's something on the books. I don't care if it's a $2 permit or whatever it is. It's enough to cover staff's time, obviously, but so it's not costing us money. But I think if we're going to go the route of, you know, giving people exemptions, we need to know what work's being done in our house. And I think, you know, just doing a simple capital improvement or improvement permit for a minimal fee, more just for the tracking purposes of it, for accountability for this program. And don't get me wrong, I hate pulling permits unless I absolutely have to pull a permit because they're expensive, it's a lot of rigmarole, and right, and a lot of time only needed for structural stuff. I know the city of Fort St. John's a little bit different, even if you're doing basic rentals, they want you to pull a permit, it's a $50 permit. Again, doesn't require engineered drawings or anything like that. It just says, hey, I'm working at this residence and I'm, you know, we're doing some drywall or some painting. And it's voluntary, I think, too. But it's more so that you know it's being done, right? And then you can request a inspection if needed, right? But that would be my only thing, is just for accountability for the tracking process. Is, I don't know, I'd be interested to see what Ray has to say on it, because he deals with a lot of this kind of stuff and permits. And...
Yeah, not so much.
No, yeah, but you have in the past, yeah.
Yeah, most of my stuff.
Well, that's the thing, a lot of my stuff too,
I
it
don't
doesn't,
play with that as well.
it doesn't require permits just because of the threshold that it's in, but.
Permit might be a bit of a, again, some of these questions might be implicitly answered as we get further on. The application fee being $100 might negate the $10,000, like the actual tax break that would be on the increased value.
Or even if we included that permit in that $100 application fee, the permit's included in that application fee, just so we know what type of work's being done.
Fair enough,
Right?
I think there will be due diligence that's required through the process, for sure. So, yeah, functionally, that might be another question that's answered as we get to drafting on this.
Anyways, as a property owner, I always appreciate the freedom of my choice within, you know, my house to do this, that, and the other. I want to find a middle ground where I don't want to see like basic renovation permits and this, that, and the other. I get it from a standpoint.
Well, I'm not saying they're a mandatory thing. Like if you want to go renovate your house and not apply for a permit, you're not doing anything that requires that structural.
Trades.
You don't have to do it. I'm saying attach the permit or something similar to this program, only for this program, not for everything within the village. Just if you want to take advantage of this program as accountability process for this program.
That's right.
Not like saying like you want to paint your house or redo your drywall and you need a permit for every single, only if you want to take advantage of this program.
No, but my worry is it spirals into the schmoz because of the way that our infinite legislation is all worming out in this nation is essentially that if a municipality now says we're granting a permit, well, therefore now the municipality is accepting liability on the conditions of that permit issuing. And what are the reassurances that the work is being done up to this standard and this standard and this standard? Because everything now has a standard and a regulation. What I'm worried is sure, it looks fine now, but then you just open up all of these intrusions into somebody's private life. And I know and that's where it always comes from. It's the strings that come along with the government money.
So to devil's advocate on that, so with issuing a permit or going that process, the permit outlines the scope of work to be completed. Right, and if we just give them a blank, hey, go do stuff on your house, they could argue, oh, it was included in this blank, you know, whatever. Yeah. And they could come back and say, oh, I was permitted to do that, and they can interpret that as a permit, where if we actually give them a permit that outlines the scope of the work, or somewhere, I'm just using the word permit, but somewhere in this process that outlines that scope of work, it actually...
The permit's freaking me out. The word
permit I think it's the word permit, but it absolves us from some liability, because now they're working within that framework, right? We haven't given them carte blanche to do whatever. It's, hey, we're working within this program.
Let me have Mr. Malcolmson answer, and then we'll go to Councillor Wall.
I think we can answer this in future drafts. I think good conversation, but I think this is something we can cover off in the future.
If he wants to go home, let's go.
The intent behind my use of the word permit, saying before the permit is issued, is that we have a benchmark before. The idea is that we have a benchmark before the upgrade and after the upgrade. That's it. If there is no permit that's required, I don't want there to be a permit required. I just want it to be, because technically, if there's no permit, you could say, well, it's before I got the permit, right? So that was the intent behind that. If Mr. Ho wants to note that down as the intent, if council is accepting of the intent behind that.
Yeah, or if you call it an authorization or whatever.
And the application fee, I think, is important so that we know that this person is intending to, they're not gonna come to us and create a burden on our staff over a minor improvement that's going to make this paperwork hassle and everything. It's gotta be worth the $100. It's gotta be worth $100 to them, and because it's going to take staff time to do this. But I think it's fine as it is, and then I think this will work itself out in the wash. I've seen lots of these bylaws in action before, and this is typically how they are, other than the A's, but we already went through that, so let's not rehash that.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, you wrote it all down, so the only part that I would like to rehear is the administration requirement part from your motion.
Okay.
So it was that,
Okay.
The application-
Requirements in application be before the permit is issued.
okay,
That there be an application fee of $100.
yeah,
That the project completion timeline be 1 to 3 years.
1 to 3 years, thank you,
That the delegated approval authority be the CAO,
okay,
with there being no end date to the program, that the program is non-transferable to future owners, and that it be reviewed in 5 years' time.
thank you. Okay, I'm comfortable with those things. So, yes, before I call the question.
I don't think the application fee should be that much. I think that before the permit's fine, but it's so tricky.
You know what I mean by before the permit? That if there's no permit, then whatever.
What's stopping some guy from something he did 10 years ago saying, I did it yesterday? Really?
Because we need to have it approved before they do it. So we'll come and look and we'll know, have a benchmark now.
Yeah, but who's gonna look at it?
It's valuation, right? What we're saying is, what's your valuation increase? And he calls BC Assessment, says, get somebody over here, look at my new oak cabinets, and somebody looks at them and says, yeah, that bumps it
It
up.
doesn't matter what you do, someone's gonna always try to scam the system.
Mr. Melton?
Here I wrote the report to trap council into getting lost in some of these nuance questions.
Weeds, yeah.
That's what it's done.
Yeah. We'll address it in a future bylaw
Okay.
revision if that works.
I'm gonna call the question then. All those in favor? And that's unanimous and carried. I don't accept meh. Hate to break it to you, stopped accepting meh a while ago.
It's a soft 3 out of 5.
Nope. All right, the 8.5. All right, 23rd Annual BC Natural Resources Forum registration for January 20th and 22nd. I am not attending this conference this year. Just a reminder, we did add the addition of FCM to this council for this year. So that is an additional cost because FCM is happening in Edmonton and it's so close. So, Councillor Wall.
I will be unable to attend, and if there isn't, my recommendation would be if no one's like jumping to be at the resource forum this year,
Yeah.
then we just don't go.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
I
I'll
was
put
thinking
that
we
to
should
them,
use
yeah.
it for FCM. So I would like to receive 8.5 for information.
Second, because January's cold.
Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Look, he's like half dead. I gotta give him one. Yes.
I would like to make the motion that we do not proceed with attending in the Natural Resource Forum.
Well, just by receiving it for information, we already have a motion, so
Yeah,
accept
so
it.
it's dead on the table.
It's dead.
We just accept it for information,
Yeah.
no action on it, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Or
So,
should we recommend to council to not send anyone?
we're literally just, if, we're not recommending this to council, and we're not talking.
It just dies on the table
dies.
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? That's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 8.6.
Recommend that the committee of the whole recommend the following to council, that the village of Pouce Coupe be authorized to participate in the Northeast BC Accessibility Committee and contribute to the regional facilitation of cost sharing agreement for 2026 to 2028.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Whittle, thank you. Discussion? We really lucked out, super cheap to us, it's only $600. And it's a provincially mandated, so this is like the cheapest provincially mandated thing we have this year. Josh is like, it sure is! So, yep, it's the cheapest thing we currently have, so it's $605.
No, the report will come back from
$4.94.
Yeah, there.
How much would it cost to do it ourselves in-house?
Way more than that.
Yeah.
Just staff time alone.
Okay, may I call the question then? All those in favor? Okay, that passes.
Who seconded that?
That was seconded by Councillor Whittle. Okay, 8.7, recommendation number 1.
That the committee of the whole recommend, no.
No, this was moved to the.
No, we moved 11.1. This was staying.
Oh, that the committee of the whole recommend that council approve
Yeah.
policy 7.1, 4.7.
No, only
and-
read them one at a time.
Why can't we do all three?
Because I have questions for some of them.
That the committee of the whole recommend that council approve policy 7.1, firefighter remuneration policy.
Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Whittle. I have a question, Mr. Malkinson. Okay. 1, what was changed? Was it just the addition of the duty officer? Okay. 2, does this add to the overall fire department budget for this year and years going forward?
Or just changes the proportions?
Can I guess it's yes and no?
No, it's, no, it does not. at
It does
all.
not add to the
To the
budget.
budget, the first question is, our policy manual didn't show that the points policy actually made its way into the manual. I think there was a draft that was done Feb 12th of this year. The committee of the whole recommended it be brought back to the 26th, and we didn't see that it was actually eventually brought back. So
Okay.
we had that it was, the council had basically approved the point system, but we wanted to
Oh, we approved that.
enshrine it into, it was done in 24, it was done, this year as well, but we just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure it was done on the template, because the old one that we had in the books was,
So we've added in deputy officer. It does not change our fire department budget.
correct.
Final question. Now as we have moved to a full-time fire chief, which is a change that we've made this year, is this coverage only as needed, or is this an additional person who is signed every weekend on top of the fire chief?
No, this is not an additional person.
This is only as needed when he's living his best life.
That's correct.
And this is what actually the department's been doing for a while. They've been having coverage when the chief's been out of town and stuff.
Totally, just wanted to
They're
be,
good questions, Stuart.
yeah.
Performing for the
I know
county.
that these are questions I'm going to get, so I would like to know the answer to them before I get them.
Very good.
Yes,
Thank you.
Councillor Rebel.
Honestly, my real question is, what do the firefighters think of this? Like,
They were the ones that brought it to
Yes,
us.
it was them that.
But this specific change, because if we add, say, a deputy officer within this, and doesn't that keep within the same pool, slice out more slices of pie kind of situation?
No, it's
Or-
not more people.
Basically, what I'm asking is, do they like it as it's being presented? Really, because I've never been a volunteer firefighter. I'm amazed. Yeah, good that folks keep doing that, because we need that. So anyways.
Mr. Malkinson?
Thank you, Your Worship. So that's Councillor Whittle's comments, definitely. The other aspect is we did work closely with Blair on this development. He saw several drafts of it, so we're trusting that he's, working with the team to make sure that it is. And we do the same on any fire department policy, so we work closely with Blair and he'd loop in the members of the fire department as needed.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna call the question then. All those in favor? That is unanimously carried. Read number 2. Go, Councillor.
Can I read 2 and 3?
No.
That the committee of the whole recommend that council approve policy 4.7, yard waste pickup for seniors and people with special needs.
Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rabel. My question to you regarding this is, does this add any increased time or wages to our public works department budget?
Your Worship, wages, no, because it, none of the extra, there's no extra work that's being identified. This is an existing policy that we've tidied up. The only increased bit of work is that we will actually publicize. There's a communication requirement in this draft that basically says that we're gonna send out a note, I think, when it gets close to the fall and spring. Is that right, Jimmy? Yeah, so it's, we're gonna do 2 social media posts now.
Okay. Second question with that. Now as you're going to be communicating this out to the public, do you have a cap Or do you plan on serving every person over the age of 65?
You're not quite there, Rick.
No, it's very, very low use historical.
No, historically it's very, very low use because we haven't advertised it. Now you're about to advertise that this is available to anybody with accessibility, special needs, or over the age of 65. If you have 55 residents that phone in and they want their yard waste picked up every spring, well, do you have a cap?
We don't, like, it would be operational need. If we did actually run into a situation where we were worried that we couldn't accommodate, then we would have to cap it at a certain point.
Okay.
I don't think that we're anticipating that in this round, but you get to the chicken and the egg of, okay, if we have a policy on the books that says that yes, we will do yard waste, but our practice is to not really encourage it too much.
Yeah, I know.
It's gonna be a bit of a, like.
I think the reason it wasn't super encouraged before was a concern that the phones would start ringing off the hook and that
Right.
there would be an overabundance of need presented and that it would add too much strain to the capacity issues we're already having in public works.
Fair enough.
So I'm not gonna make a recommendation regarding that, I'd just like to make you think about, just sort of think about that as the phones begin ringing. Councillor Wall?
I would just like to note that, like, a lot of the seniors in our community can be quite prideful in the fact that they still do their yard work, and they
Yes.
still shovel their driveways, and I know a few seniors that even shovel their neighbors' driveways. I don't know why they do, but they do. It's their
My
privilege.
neighbor's been doing my other neighbor's driveway for years, he's also a senior.
Of course. So I don't think that what's going to happen here is everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, because people are very proud of the work that they do, and they're proud of their mobility. This is going to be, I think, specifically for people who can't and don't have neighbors who do it for them, and those sorts of things. And if the village does end up in a situation where we have too many people and we don't have staff to do it, well then we can relook at the policy. But for the time being, I think
I hate making false promises. That's my thing.
I think right now we can try it out,
Okay.
and I do believe that the community as a whole already steps up to the plate on
yeah.
this, and there's only a few people that are falling
Yeah.
behind.
I would just hate for that one, we're at number 50, and we're overwhelmed at 51 phones, and then we're like, listen, man,
These,
we just can't.
these people, no, it's not just capacity that this program runs into. Sometimes you'll get folks with different community, but we had folks that have tried to donate cars, via these programs.
Yes, yeah.
There are some natural
Tires.
limits. There's some natural limits that the crew will run into beyond just capacity. So.
Councillor Rebel?
Okay, just to clarify, so essentially this is saying for a resident under normal circumstances, they clean up their yard and then they go to the compost area and dump it or go to one of the various transfer sites, right? That's the regular process, right? This is saying that folks, seniors or folks with mobility issues are essentially within their own yard doing all the cleaning up and stuff themselves anyways.
Yeah, we're just picking it up.
It's literally they're bagging it and throwing it on the curb. So essentially we're offering a yard waste collection service for a limited number of people within the community, right? Like that's really at the core of what the heck we're proposing, or what already is a thing. We've just cleaned up the wording. May I suggest that if we're doing that, like we do regular Thursday pickups for garbage and whatnot, why don't we just set, obviously you can't set a specific day like September 10th or whatever for eternity. But if you say, okay, there's 4 times per year, well, why don't we just say, okay, well, in these certain seasons or whenever, spring cleanup, fall cleanup, we come round on a day, on a Saturday or whatever, and pick up all these different bags and chuck them into the compost pile ourselves, right? Like, that's what I'm kind of suggesting. I know that's very nuanced and that's a commenting on operational exercise, so I do apologize for that. But what I'm getting at is, we're basically, once again, determining a service, right? This is a service that has technically existed in some form before, but it's just trying to assist folks. Essentially, we're proposing yard waste collection for a certain number of folks that ask for it. Yeah.
No, through your worship, Councillor Rabel makes good points. I think that if we did see, yes, this would be something that we look to do in a kind of concentrated fashion. It wouldn't be, hey, we're going to pick up your, lawn trimmings all spring or all fall. It's normally, or at least the way the city of Dawson Creek has done it historically, it's
There's like a period.
a week or 6 weeks.
Yeah, I think
There's
it's
a
6
sign
weeks.
up period that residents can submit to the city of Dawson Creek. The city of Dawson Creek maintains a list, and they provide that list to the Rotary Club, and the Rotary Club goes, I think, over the course of 2 evenings, and picks up all the leaves and disposes them at the public works. It's a fair deal.
Please.
2 suggestions potentially is, could we refer this to the Regional Accessibility Committee for comment? And then also, could we put in our advertisements for our seniors aging in place, put it in concert with our advertisement of that to say, hey, there's already a mix.
No, but we, you know what we can do?
Yeah.
Sorry, you just.
But you get what I'm getting at,
No,
right?
if council approves this, we could let the Northeastern BC Accessibility Committee know that we're doing this, and then they'll add us to their newsletter and give us all stars and
Brownie
shine.
points.
Yeah.
Good thought.
I make the recommendation that we bring that to our special council meeting in 10 minutes.
How many weeks?
Are they talking?
No, that we just like, let this accessibility committee
And
know
how
about
many
it.
weeks? Yeah, the world isn't ending tomorrow, so it's fine.
I genuinely didn't hear. You said next week?
No, he said in
10
5
minutes.
minutes.
Oh, in 5 minutes.
10
Well,
minutes.
that's really good.
Yeah. No, he finds you so funny. Is
Then we just bring it to the meeting that we're having.
Councillor Whittle?
But something like this,
Nobody.
you know, just for future, you know, thinking about it, is this not the capacity that we could look at adding under our seniors aging in place program?
It would cost us money if we added it to it.
It's a contracted
Yeah.
expense.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, like, we're essentially servicing the same.
Yes, but this doesn't cost us any additional money, that would.
Well, and there is a potential partnership. You folks might remember the discussion we had about FireSmart, the grant application that you authorized previously. There's a fuel management aspect to that in years 2, and I think years 2 and beyond for the program, where you can do fuel mitigation, aka collecting lawn trimmings, collecting firewood and moving it from, you know, spaces that are directly adjacent to the home. Like, I think even lawn clearing and fuel management stuff. So there are potential partnerships through that.
Councillor Rebel?
Because we're discussing it, ultimately, if I was a senior coming into the village office, I would hope for, honestly, just like a list of stuff that the village offers, the seniors aging in place offers, you know.
The staff actually normally makes up little packages.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think,
Because I've never asked.
you know, it's a cute
You're
little.
not old enough to worry about this.
So, but what I'm getting at is, you know, I've literally never heard of this before, and I know this is from 2017.
Yeah.
You know, I've talked to a lot of folks. I don't think a lot of folks know this exists.
Yeah.
Really, it's buried somewhere deep,
That's
deep
why we're
within
gonna
the
start
policy.
advertising.
There are 2 residents that have taken part in it over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And that's what led us to basically figuring that the program has been kind of under communicated. So
Yeah.
that's why we added the piece in.
But what I'm cautioning against is, I'm fine with a separate communication, get it out there, but when we're communicating with seniors and when seniors are coming in or other folks with other needs and whatnot, that all the different resources that we connect with are all kind of presented at the same time, kind of thing, right? You know, not just parceling it out, right?
You know,
'Cause it's a blast of like random.
have you ever heard what
little
Tumbler
nuggets.
Ridge does?
No.
So Tumbler Ridge has it where when a new resident comes in and they get a welcome wagon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if they're a family coming in, they get information on all the local parks and local rec activities and all those different things. If a senior comes in, they get the pamphlets for all the
Comes
different.
of age, sure, I don't know. If that's
Well, no, they generally do it for new residents when they show up, and we could easily have a little thing of pamphlets for somebody over 65 and.
So there's gonna be the new welcome wagon with the push skippy, and there's gonna come knock on your door.
we all go around, yeah.
Not to say what I'll be handing out.
Those little straws.
I love those little straws.
You know.
Okay.
Cinnamon buns for everybody.
Anyways,
All right.
that's kind of what I'm thinking is just the way that we communicate. Like I get the specific thing, but when you're blasted haphazardly with a bajillion nuanced things, like for example, I look into farm grants because we've got a farm. And oh my goodness, there's the most nuanced, niche, random stuff when really you just want the big old list of this is this crap, and then you figure it out from there. Just saying.
I'm going to call the question on this one. All those in favor? That's unanimous and carried. Item number 3.
The more I think about it, the more I disagree with 5.1. You gotta read it. I'll read it. That the committee of the whole recommend that council approve policy 5.4, smoke a smoke-free workplace.
I second that. There you go. Discussion? Councilor Whittle?
So what I can see from reading through it, because when I say that, I'm like, okay, what's this? It's basically they're just cleaning up the bylaw
Yes.
and bringing in the new.
Remember, this is
provisional
provincially
things.
mandated, actually.
And it's
I
one of
know
those
it's
things that
mandated.
province is cramming down our throats.
So this is through WorkSafe, this is through the province, this is through,
It's one of those we don't have a choice in the matter.
No.
Rubber stamp it.
Then they should send it to us, they should just do it.
I'm gonna call the question then, all those,
Wait.
oh,
Just serious question. Is this not within some already regulation? Do we really need this in-house?
I think we technically need our own policy or bylaw behind it as proof for the provincial government. I could be wrong, Mr. Malcolmson?
No, it also becomes, theoretically, these types of policies become helpful in performance management. If you had somebody that was insisting on smoking at a job site or while they were working.
Or smoking in a truck?
Yeah, this is one of the policies that we get staff to sign off on when they start their job.
Counselors smoking paper.
You wish.
That hasn't happened in decades.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question then. All those in favor? All those opposed?
I'm abstaining.
You can, that's a,
I'm opposing because I think it's ridiculous that the province just downloads stuff on everyone that we have to do independently.
would you like your opposed notice?
Yes.
Resolutions none, moving on to correspondence. This Bill M216 is just hitting everybody. It's been, yeah, it's on there for everything. I'm make the recommendation that we receive the correspondence, for information.
All of it?
All of it. Yep.
Seconded.
Seconded by Councillor Whittle. Discussion. Just, if you've been invited to the Bob Zimmer thing, so feel free to go. All those in favor?
I have one question.
Oh, what?
We have already sent a letter in opposition.
Yes,
so let-
we absolutely have. All those in favor? Unanimous and carried. If you're available, I'm sadly not here for when Bob Zimmer has his Christmas open house in Dawson, but if you are, feel free to go and say hello. Okay, moving on, bylaws, we moved 11.1 to our special meeting. Administrative reports. I move that we receive all for information. Seconded by Councillor Wall, you beat you to it. Any discussion regarding receiving for information? Nope. All those in favor? Unanimous and carried. We're just stealing the wind from beneath your wings, Mr. Malcolmson.
include councilors' reports?
You wish.
Except for information.
Okay, Councillor Johnson is not feeling well. Councillor Rabble, what have you been up to? 10 more minutes and you can sleep.
I yield if the member present wishes
Oh,
to
do
speak
you have
first.
No, you go ahead. And last thing I can remember doing is our arguments.
Yeah, it's been gross, so. Okay, Councillor Rabble, what have you been up to?
I am here because the Ministry of Highways closed the Pine Pass while I was traveling into it to supposedly conduct avalanche control, but closed the entire highway prior to avalanche control being conducted whatsoever. So I understand there's safety and risks associated, but
You'd have been bummed if you got stuck in an avalanche.
yeah, true. I'd be very cool. Yeah, I understand avalanches are danger. I appreciate that they're, conducting their avalanche control measures, to keep it from, additional snow to accumulate to cause further avalanches, just as we should remove additional fire fuel from our forests to prevent these excessive forest fires. But basically with that all, yes, I'm here because there's literally no highway to the lower mainland right now, and I cannot attend a funeral, so I'm here. Yeah, but
Well, we're glad to have you though.
other than that, but anyways, yeah, lots of work on a whole bunch of random things, but nothing to present in its conclusive form here.
Councillor Wall?
Haven't had too much, missed the same thing as Councillor Rabble there. However, I have been doing quite a bit of research and I've spoken to a few people about what's happening federally regarding, so it's a great day to have this conversation because we just had a preliminary look at a preliminary budget. We're spending about $500,000 on the RCMP right now, and protective services, which includes fire, but the RCMP as well, and bylaw. However, the federal government is implementing a firearm buyback program that will be affecting the mill rate and taxes that are going to the RCMP to seize law-abiding citizens' firearms. So I have a motion, which is whereas no firearm crimes in the Peace region have yet been committed using legally possessed firearms, that the Committee of the Whole direct staff to prepare a draft letter to council for review at the next regular council meeting in opposition to the federal gun buyback program, and that following council's approval of the final letter, staff be instructed to forward the letter to the City of Dawson Creek and the Peace River Regional District
And the MLA.
and the member of the Legislative Assembly and the member of Parliament for their endorsement and support of this letter in opposition.
Can I get a second? Seconded by Councillor Johnston. I got a snag of one, I still have. Yeah, no, I completely agree. At this point in time, the majority of gun violence is committed not by legally registered firearms, but illegally obtained guns. And I feel that you are correct. They are targeting the wrong party at this point.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, this would not be without precedent, as my understanding is, I believe the province of Alberta, but also various municipalities in Alberta, and also I think the municipality of Fredericton.
Oh, there's been a ton.
There's been quite a few that have said, hey. And what's interesting is, my understanding, I don't know if it's me, anyways, I think within municipal powers, we do actually have a piece about firearms within municipal boundaries. I don't know exactly what that looks like though.
Regulating the discharge of firearms within the municipal boundaries.
Okay.
But I think the sale as well.
Which would include a transfer to the RCMP that's considered a sale of the firearm through this program.
It's a buyback.
It's a buyback program, so that we have control over that.
I'm not 100% sure about that one, but I do like the fact that your letter is highlighting that at this point in time, crimes are not being committed by registered gun owners, they're being committed by
Criminals.
criminals. Yes. Okay. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the recommendation by Councillor Wall that's on the floor? It's unanimous and carried. Wonderful, thank you. Did you have anything else you wanted to add for your report, Councillor Wall?
No.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much. Councillor Whittle, what have you been up to?
Staying warm
I don't blame you.
and staying out of cold. That's about all I've really been up to recently.
Okay.
So yeah, the only other thing I guess, coming back to Councillor Wall's point here with the firearm buyback, it'd be kind of interesting to, when staff has time, because we have so much of it, is what exactly are our rights within the community for regarding firearm transfer?
Transfer, sorry?
Yeah, transfer, sale, what exactly are the?
I did just Google it. I think I was remembering incorrectly. There might be some business licensing regs that you could do. There are constitutional limits on the ability of municipalities that can, in their ability to issue licenses for certain businesses. And there are limits to the ability that municipality has to deny business licenses, and there's some interesting case law on that. The section I was just Googling in the community charter refers to the discharge of firearms within the municipality. That's something that this organization can regulate, but the sale of I'm not so confident on. But I
I don't know, I was just thinking something to put more of a, let's see what other resources we have to be more of a pain in the, or a thorn in the side of the federal government that doesn't know what to do with guns. Because firearms don't hurt people, it's the idiots controlling them that does. Right, so.
Right, anything else?
No, that's about it. I do believe we have a Christmas party tomorrow, or staff has a Christmas party tomorrow. Celebrate all the hard work they've done this year.
Yep. So you can all make it.
in my case, or just
No, there's been some hard work in there. You've had to do it, Danny.
Are you happy you work inside?
pardon me. Yes, this week I am.
Yeah. All right, well, on November 26th, I met with staff and did my weekly check-in I normally do. On December 3rd, I met with staff again. Each week I kind of check in with them, see how things are going. On November 5th, I attended virtually the PRRD meeting. The biggest thing that's coming around the board table right now that is a bit concerning the whole region is there's lots of windmill activity and permits being applied for within the region. And this is obviously beginning to create concern at the board table around cumulative impacts. almost to the point that the board has decided to begin looking at their bylaw and zoning, because there's been such an influx. I think they've received 8 this year alone
For new wind farms?
for new wind farms in the region. And they're getting extremely overwhelmed because they're almost stacking them at this point in time. They have 3 brand new ones proposed just for Tumbler Ridge around Willen Lake alone.
They should find a more sustainable way of disposing of wind.
Yes, and
At the
so-
end of their life before they start
What
proving.
about the birds?
Well, exactly. So because
That's
the
gonna make it
province,
easier here if they put those in.
That's so true.
because the province has really taken away that, that need for cumulative impact studies due to their call for power, the region is beginning to try to find a way to fight back. So that is something that we are gonna see probably in the next 4 to 5 months. They're really doing their best to hold the province's feet to the fire and say, you're pushing everything through because of a call of power. We now have 8 brand new wind farms being proposed and slammed through, and they're almost like they are stacking on top of each
And
other.
no environmental assessment.
Nothing.
Well,
No.
the thing is, that's more concerning even than the environmental assessment is because like the lot of it's probably been done because these aren't overnight projects. Like some of these have been in the works for a while. Where my big concern is, and I think where a lot of people I've talked to is sustainability, or is more like it comes back to sustainability. But at the end of the life of that project,
They
where
still
is it
cannot
going to
recycle.
go? Are they going to go get buried in a field in Saskatchewan? Are they going to get buried in somebody's farmer's
They
field?
are currently still
Right,
buried.
before we start allowing these in, there should be there should be some kind of sort of recycling, or is it gonna get mulched up and just put into our landfills, which are already plugged up because of Site C?
Yeah.
Right, so I think that question needs to be asked. It's no different than, all these liberal
And that
fruit
is-
huggers when it comes to the oil and gas industry. Oh my god, oil and gas is bad. Well, you can't build your freaking wind towers with oil and gas.
So.
And yet, we can't put a pipeline in, but yet we can put all these wind towers up and then just bury the crap in the ground.
So that is
Yeah,
asked
yeah.
at, that's
That's how I
asked,
really feel about it.
that's asked at every board meeting, and at every single board meeting, the presenter always throws around the question, trying not to really firmly answer it, which is what has led the PRD to begin looking at their OCP and zoning and trying to find a way to stop them in their tracks, so it's been quite interesting.
Is that why public input's been extended to December 15th?
Yeah. So I will be bringing as much information back to you as the PRD works really hard to try to find a way to slow this down regarding the call for power, and I will let you know how that goes. On November 9th, I met with Mayor Dover regarding the sub-regional committee stuff, which will be coming back to council in the near future for discussion. I spoke with Mr. Malkinson about that as well. And then December, oh no, that was today. I was supposed to meet with Mr. Malkinson and I didn't. Just a reminder, the Christmas party for the staff is happening tomorrow. Please check your email regarding times and locations. I hope you guys can make it. Me and Mr. Malkinson are going to kill it as the MCs for the night, so just saying. And of course, Mr. Curioto, please know that that invitation does get extended to you as well.
I'll be there.
Are you coming? Is the missus coming?
No, but one of our coworkers is coming as well.
Okay.
We're delighted. Colleen is coming as well.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I look forward to seeing you. I'm going to be a little bit late, but I am coming. And November 17th is our next regular council meeting. Just a reminder to this council.
December?
No,
December.
December. I wrote November for every one of these. December 17th. I am not going to be here. I'm traveling for the holidays, so I'm going to be out of town. So you're going to be in the precious hands of Councillor Little.
I'm looking forward now.
I'll even
How
start.
do you guys feel about tabling everything till January?
Question period, there's none. Rise and report, there's none. We're going to adjourn the committee of the whole, take a break, and move into the special. Yeah, there you go.
Jimmy, do you need my motion?
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
Does Colleen know that it's a dry Christmas party?
Yes.
You beating him up?
Oh, Jeff's coming too, nice. They know what, okay, I'm bringing a bottle of rum.
No
Jeff and Colleen are coming
fire
up.
alarms.
I bring
You can take him, put me on.
Just call it.
Has been permitted using.
No, you've done
15